to work. You have to truly believe in the magic.
Welcome to Let's Talk Magic, an Orlando Magic UK podcast. Tonight is technically the first episode of the new season. We're filming on July the 4th, 2024. That means it's a big happy Independence Day to our friends, viewers and listeners across the pond in the USA, and specifically in Orlando. Firstly tonight, we're joined by a skater boy who doesn't want to say see you later boy to Markelle Fultz.
Superb, Gary.
Gee, how are we?
Mate. You've had that lined up since Tuesday, haven't you?
The moment you said you were at that Avril Lavigne gig and I was like, I'm hosting this week, I was like, this is coming, G.
Yeah. No, I'm really good, thank you, mate. Obviously, went to the gig. Lavigne, simple plan, absolutely brilliant. So much so that I wanted to go on the Wednesday in Manchester, but wasn't able to. But very well, thank you, mate. Obviously, lots to talk about in the magic world. So excited.
Good.
The Welsh Woj.
The Welsh Woj. So I bet you that Woj account's been taking some hammering from Cardiff if he looked at his IP.
We did the Patreon call, and that's what G was being called, the Welsh Woj.
I know.
Oh, we probably.
I know.
Along with Stato, weren't you?
Stato
of the Valleys.
Yeah,
I know.
That's a throwback. That is a big throwback. But
it is.
I haven't got quite the music introduction for you, Paul, but it's the king of the mosh pit himself. How's things in Mansfield, mate?
Really good, pal. Thank you very much. Yes, been busy, but really good. How's you doing, mate? Well, we know you've not been feeling 100%, having missed last week's.
Yeah, I've got to say, COVID is grim. Like, I'm sat here now. I chugged an energy drink before we came on air just to try and perk up a bit. That's how bad it is. It's gone 8:30 in the UK now, so it could be a long night ahead for me because it was a pretty big energy drink, put it that way. But
Gah, you got to tell us about your day in school, mate.
Oh,
yes, absolutely, pal.
I'm back in work, and my lovely trainee teachers, who I think a couple of them watched this actually, did come through. If you're watching this on YouTube, with signed by them Orlando Magic ball, which was massively appreciated. It was their graduation, so well done. I know a couple of them are actual basketball fans, so there we go.
Cool. Well, that's quality. It's nice appreciation, that is, mate. Quality, that. Well impressed.
Yeah, I was as well. I couldn't believe it, actually. But
well impressed at that. That's really good.
Yeah, it's class. If you're watching or you're even listening now, you'll notice that we don't have the third of the three lions, so Mr. Mikey Clark is missing tonight. Look at G's face if you're watching. So before we
forgot something Swiss.
I'm going to say
some cheese earlier.
Last week we had the introduction in Slovenia.
Yeah.
In Slovenian.
Yeah.
I was expecting something Swiss, G.
Yeah.
Even if it was just a piece of cheese.
Yeah. I had some earlier.
Toblerone or something of that nature. The display behind having a cuckoo clock on it.
I know.
Maybe
I failed you this week.
Maybe you can yodel for us at the end.
Oh, God.
So we're going to be having an interesting chat about free agency. If you're watching social platforms, you'll notice that's what the Magic fan base are rightly talking about. It's causing opinions. It's causing a little bit of divide in some cases. But if you would like to see the new Orlando Magic players or the old ones returning, why not check out our attraction part, our partner Attraction Tickets. Apart from not just theme parks in Orlando, Attraction Tickets sell Orlando Magic tickets at hugely competitive prices. So when you're booking your next holiday, use our link in the description and see what they have to offer. You can also look at our website, letstalkmagic.com, for all of our affiliate links and discount codes, which includes the NBA store and Fanatics, which don't just sell the NBA jersey, they sell Euros jerseys and all the clubs of the British leagues in particular, but the European leagues are dropping their new shirts this season, and a lot of them are available on Fanatics.
Including your lot, Gary.
Well, we're not. We sold out 2 months' worth of stock in a day.
That's a proper club, that is, mate. You know, it's nice to see a club in the Northeast, really represent.
Thank you very much. I'll keep neutral for this before I get like people at my door with sticks and stuff. All right, but so the biggest the Magic made an early splash in free agency. Geez, just made my day there by signing Kentavious Caldwell-Pope from the Denver Nuggets. Pope, predominantly a two-guard. He can play small forward. He's won rings with Denver and the LA Lakers. Didn't say that. He brings experience, strong defense, and good outside shooting. He's a former number 8 pick, and he signed a 3-year deal with the Magic. So, Paul, it's only right for me to start with you. You were the first person on this pod to mention Pope. What's your take on the signing, and are you happy?
I'm very happy at having picked him up. It was interesting to see Draymond Green talking about it shows that the Magic are serious in that they've been able to attract a player like Caldwell-Pope. Now, I know that there's some discord between Magic fans as to whether he's a good pickup or not. I do entirely understand the view that perhaps he's not the scorer that we needed. However, I was reading an interview with one of the Denver correspondents who'd been asked by somebody from the Magic side of things why it's a good pickup for us. And their view was that if you want a guy who is willing to accept any role within a team and play in the way that he is asked, then he is that guy. He is the consummate professional, the consummate teammate, and able to play in many, many different roles within his position. We've already spoke about his ability to provide accurate shooting previously. Granted, it's not volume. However, when you are hitting at a good percentage rate, that contains a threat which is going to spread the floor for us. His defense is outstanding. I was also reading in that same interview that his stated goal for last season was to be a member of one of the defensive teams of the season. He didn't attain that, but that shows that he is serious about working in that environment. Now, you put him potentially alongside Jalen Suggs, or you never know, we might see some more changes yet. But when you've got a guy who is stating that that's what he wants to be, he is suited very much to our style of play. So yeah, I'm very pleased with it. We'll see what we get as to does he increase his volume of shooting. We'll see if he helps spread the floor for the team ultimately once we get into the season. But I think when you put him alongside Suggs, who carries a 3-point threat, not the greatest, but he was improving during last season. You throw Franz into the mix, who, yes, we all know, had a little bit of a dip in his efficiency from 3, but is still capable. Paolo was certainly improving from range last season, and assuming that we're starting with Wendell at the centre, we know that at times he can also hit the 3. You then put in potentially off the bench a JI, whose shot had improved last season, Cole Anthony, Mo Wagner. Each of them carries somewhat of a 3-point threat, and I think it's helped us throw in the drafting of De Silva, and I think it shows that they've looked at what the needs are and are trying to address that. So yeah, I'm very pleased with it.
Oh, good stuff. There was one question, Gary, that came in from the mailbag, some details of which have kind of come to light in recent days. But Angus was asking, do you think the Magic front office were ever serious about Clay or Paul George, or do you think KCP was always the target?
I think the stuff with Klay Thompson shows that there'd been some type of sounding out had happened, because there's been, we disappeared from the race, but there has been this. It looks as though he's made it pretty clear about where he was willing and not willing to play, by the sounds, like just reading between the lines. Obviously, we're in a WhatsApp group together for the pod, and there was the Patreon call as well, which I was on for a little bit. I was very under the weather, and I just said, I've got to log off here. I can't stay on here. But my nightmare scenario was that the Magic were going to hang around for Paul George and almost be the 2 a.m. in the nightclub, where it's like, what's left type of thing. And I had this image of the Magic doing that. I think we had an idea. I think we knew when Paul George went to Philly that the red carpet was going out and they were the preferred bid. And I think we'd also rightly made contact with Pope. And I believe the plan became on Sunday evening to get Pope and probably possibly Hartenstein. I think that might have been the plan. I'm just hypothesizing there, but I think we'd obviously spoken to Clay, and he's made his preference known. That's reading between the lines. And then I think Paul George, if we'd waited, I think we would have got an audience, possibly. But I think he was always going to go to Philly because they're that much further down. He needs to win in 2 years. And Joel Embiid gives him that shot. Nick Nurse gives him that shot now. So really, I think the Magic looked at it and went, actually, we can get somebody here who can help us, who can upgrade. And I think that's what they did. They got Pope, and I think we probably were looking at Hartenstein because it was, we'll come to it later, but the Goga signing afterwards tells me a little bit about where that might have been. And I know that's I haven't got any inside information. That's my hypothetical on that.
I'm not convinced we were ever in the conversation for Paul George. I'll be honest with you. I think it might have been more with him a case of, as we've said before, as getting mentioned in the conversation. It's nice to be mentioned, but as a way of pressing others to get the market moving. Again, there's been suggestions. I think it was Woj who suggested that we'd offered Klay Thompson a similar deal to that we've offered Caldwell-Pope. But ultimately for us, it's been as simple as KCP. It's forget the start of the alphabet. That's where we're going. It's simple as KCP.
So if you want to download Paul's new track, it's available. Paul, you've got
a Raoul Bacall Jackson's mix-up.
Oh, I would pay for that. I would download that. Nobody else might, but I would download it, Paul. Gee, I'm going to throw the mailbag back to you. I can't beat Paul.
Okay, mate.
But Gary Clark asked, was this the best move, or would you have preferred Clay, PG, or someone else? Gary added that he was excited to see Kentavious Caldwell-Pope on the floor for the Magic, and he thinks he offers an upgrade at both ends.
Absolutely.
Yes, it's a very good question. It's easy to fall in love with, a superstar, a Paul George, a Klay Thompson. Clay's got, a lot of experience. He's got a couple of championships. Paul George, multiple, all-star for many, many years. And, still at the top of his game when he's, 34, seeking that sort of a contract. But it's the contract and the length of the contract is what really sort of stands out. And you just don't want to be hampered. So when push comes to shove, the right deal was to keep the flexibility, get KCP in, who, he's a very, very good player. He isn't a Paul George, but he probably offers just as much on the defensive end. Obviously, doesn't have the offensive prowess that you do get with Paul George. But it keeps the flexibility. It gives an option for an out in, 2-3 years. And the possibility to go after another free agent when Paolo is more in his prime, Paolo and Franz, I should say. So obviously you're going to get a lot of people on Tinternet and Magic Twitter and everything, obviously a little bit upset maybe. They were expecting to have a superstar, have a, three-point gunslinger in Klay Thompson, whereas it's probably the non-sexy player of the three. But it's someone, like you guys have mentioned, defensively, he's striving to be in the all-defense team. Stick him with Suggs and Isaac, and something that gets missed in the NBA circles is points off turnovers and forcing turnovers. And if you've got two dogs in there like KCP and Suggs, hounding and really wearing down these great offensive players, then it's only going to set everybody else up. And I think it's a really good move that offers a lot of flexibility going forward. So would I have preferred them? You could think of it two ways, but I'd probably rather the flexibility given the choice.
Yeah. So, Paul, you going to come in there?
I think I never hid the fact that I didn't particularly want us to sign either Paul George or Klay Thompson. I think it would have been a wrong move. I think that KCP is, in Denver, he was that fifth option as far as scoring goes. But he is, in this article I'm referring to, he was referred to by the Denver Nuggets correspondent as an elite shooter. He's prepared to take, he has scored 30 points or more on a few occasions. But when you're not that main player, how often are you getting that opportunity to rack the points up? So perhaps we see a bigger offensive contribution from him. I think the only thing about him that does concern me is that he's not necessarily the best at creating his own shot necessarily. I think he's better where he's got other offensive options around him, and that's my one concern at the signing in respect of KCP. But I think of the three that we're talking about here, he would have been the one I would personally have chosen, simply based on age and likely availability. We've all said that we can't keep carrying injured players. Yeah. That's been the issue for us for the last few seasons. Klay Thompson has missed a lot of games as a result of injury. Paul George has missed a lot of games as a result of injury. There's no point us paying massive wages to somebody if they're just going to warm the bench. So in that respect, again, it's another bonus in my view for taking KCP over the other two.
And just looking at his field goal percentage from downtown the last couple of seasons, so just over 40% last year, 42 the year prior, 39, 41, 38. So you look at those 5 years, and he also shot 89% from the line last year, 82 the year prior, 89, 86. So you're getting a knockdown shooter given the opportunity. And with all the focus is going to be on Franz and Paolo, you can't leave KCP open. So it's really, we've got what we need there, and a shooter who's going to spread the floor and keep defenses, from going to sleep on him.
Yeah, I think we all agree that he upgrades the Magic. Like offensively, like we know Gary Harris hasn't quite been there for the Magic, probably through injury, but we needed somebody who's going to give us 12 to 14 points, probably from the two guard position on a good shooting percentage, and Pope looks like he can give us that, and so he's available. Paul, as you say, he can play. He hasn't. Hopefully, it's not a jinx, but he hasn't got an injury record. So hopefully, this is somebody we can have like a healthy amount of games from, who can continue that shooting. And
you've just mentioned there. Sorry, Gary. You've just mentioned there, though, but he's somebody who is capable of giving you 12, 14 points comfortably per game. How many games that we played last season were those points the ones that were missing from that position? And how many games, when you're talking about the guy being an upgrade in the defensive end, how many points is he going to be able to help us prevent conceding? I think sometimes you have to look beyond the box score. You can't just take it as a box score. This guy only gets this many. There's more to it than that.
I would also add as well, when you're talking defensively, and we've obviously got options at the guard spots. We might have Markelle Fultz back, we might not. But if you look at a 4-guard rotation, and it's more than that, but Suggs, KCP, Gary Harris, Anthony Black, how many teams in the NBA have got 4 guards of that defensive level to rotate around on the court?
Yeah. Good observation.
I think Gary Harris will see a bit of time at small forward. I think Pope might as well in some rotations, but there's not many 4-guard rotations who got that level of defense available. So that'll be interesting to see going forward on a team that's identity is defensive. So I think that's interesting. So Jonathan Isaac, So I think we probably agree the next big move was the Magic extending GI. If anybody's forgotten, we all saw what a healthy GI brings and means to the Magic last season. 5 years, $84 million. Typical fashion, this declines. G, am I all right to come to you? What's your take on this?
Well, obviously, the Magic had seen enough from what he did last season, especially when healthy towards the end of the season. Obviously, we hope that, we see more of him on the floor. We might see him set out a couple of back-to-backs just to make absolutely sure. But, 17, 18 million on average per season for someone of his ability, it's a snip in today's market. You look at some of the other contracts bandied about at the moment. Some of them, astronomical, really. So to lock him in for 5 years, but dare I say it? Well, first of all, I think he's got some sort of insurance policy on that contract. I don't know the absolute ins and outs of it because I've been a bit busy in the last couple of days, but I'm sure it's to do, with his previous injuries. So something we might be able to come off if we have to, but touch wood, that's not going to happen. But we've just mentioned the defensive tenacity of the Magic, and he's right in there as one of the stalwarts who actually brings that. So having a healthy Jonathan Isaac, especially at that price we're giving him, I like the deal a lot. How about yourself?
I think what we talked on here about, I think I drew the comparison with Naz Reid, and I'd said if the Magic really had to be looking around that and the games that J.I. had missed before for the Magic when we paid him when he's been hurt, essentially. So J.I. getting a mega contract for me, I think would have been, I'm not knocking the guy, but I think it would have been a little bit rich if we'd gone crazy with the deal. So I think the deal we've got reflects that we've invested in him over a long period, whereas we haven't paid a huge amount for a player of that ability, which is kind of, I think, him investing in us a little bit as well. Maybe it's a thank you, maybe it's a payback. Paul's nodding a bit there as well, so I think he's in agreement.
I think it's a genius move by the Magic.
Yeah.
Absolute genius. And it could only be done now. This is the only season we could have done this in. By renegotiating and extending him, we've been able to do what we've been able to do. It could only have been done in this window, apparently. You've locked in one of the league's premier defenders for 5 years at, as G has said, 18 million a year. And now we all know that is considerably more this season, and then it declines. That decline is perfectly timed for, as we look to extend Franz, Jalen and Paolo. It gives us a huge amount of flexibility there. It also is timed as the cap increases, I think next season by 10%. I think it's 10% season on season during this CBA now. So we have given ourselves the flexibility to pay Jonathan Isaac now, to have him locked in, to have him say, yeah, I want to be here and I want to stay, to be able to extend the other guys that we have to look at in the future. And if things don't work out and we do choose to move on, we have structured this contract in such a way that it becomes very, very movable. But one thing on JI, can we stop talking about him being a potential centre? We saw it didn't work. Stop, people, please stop considering him as being our starting centre. He's not going to be. We know his role.
No, not a starting centre. I think it's situational. If somebody goes small, then if you have him on their five, so to speak.
Yeah, I'd still rather him play his position, mate. I'm not going to lie.
No, that's fine.
I'm not going to lie.
Fine.
But I think it's an absolute genius move by the Magic. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're fairly happy with that. So I'm going to do this one as a tag team. So Mo Wagner and Joe Ingles will start. We know why, Mojo and all that. Okay, I think Paul, you texted straight after saying Mojo's gone and all this type of stuff.
Yeah.
I was in an Austin Powers moment for a second. I was like, what they've done to Paul. So we saw the Magic didn't take up Mo's deal none of us were shocked. So we knew that was coming, that he'd probably, Mo Wagner would be, not with the Magic briefly. He then got a new deal, surprised nobody. This one's 2 years at 22 million. G, I'm going to start with you, and then I'm going to come to Paul on the next one. What's your take on this? Are you happy with Mo Wagner? It's not surprising, is it?
No, not at all. Worst kept secret out there. I think everyone expected him. His brother's on the team. You want to keep the Wagner household happy no matter what. You want these two on your roster for a very long time. It's a very good deal. 11 million a season. In comparison, and I know we're going to talk about a certain other centre who's signed elsewhere in a little bit, who's making a silly amount of money. But obviously, we fancied having him on our team. Anyway, back to Mo Wagner. He puts up points in bunches, a real spark plug. Defensively, he can bring the intensity. He can really sort of rally a team when the team needs a lift. He can even poke their, favourite play, their best player, just to change the atmosphere, change the dynamic of a game. We've seen him do it to Doncic. And he just acts like he doesn't care, doesn't he, sometimes? And you've got to love him. And I've said this before. It's like having a Robbie Savage on your team. Brilliant.
It was written in somewhere where they were grading the deals, and the one for Mo, it started out saying, this is a guy, if he's not on your team, you hate him. If he's on your team, you love him. And my first reaction was, it's worth 11 million a year to just have him back for that annoyance factor that he brings, that disruption that he brings. He's great. I'm delighted that we've got him back.
Yeah, and it's only 3 million above the mid-level exception, which is a fantastic deal for us. And like you said, Paul, those Cleveland fans didn't like him in the playoffs, did they?
He gets behind it. He gets under everybody's skin. Fantastic. Yeah. And long may it continue.
So, Paul, I'm going to come to you. The news came out on Wednesday night that Joe Ingles is gone and has joined the Minnesota Timberwolves. So I'm going to ask you two questions. One, how do you feel about this? We're in therapy here. And secondly, does this hurt Mo Wagner?
I'm not sure. I'll start with the second part. I'm not sure it hurts Mo, because he had production before Joe arrived with the team. He had a phenomenal understanding with Joe Ingles. So, yes, there's going to be an adjustment, but I don't necessarily think it hurts Mo Wagner's play for the Magic. But, yeah, they had a great understanding. I think that Joe Ingles will be missed by the team far more than a lot of Magic fans have realised. I know we didn't get the Joe Ingles sharpshooting at any point with the team, really, unfortunately. But he was such a vocal part of the bench, coaching the young guys consistently. And we also saw, in the same way as Mo could, he was able to get under the skin of his opponents. Any team that he played for, he just managed to rile those guys that he was mates with and that he played with. I didn't expect him to come back, I'll be honest with you. I didn't expect us to pick him up this season. My hope was that we would have found a way of getting him to sort of think about retirement and bringing him into the coaching staff. That would have been my ideal, if we could have got him back as part of the coaching staff. So you've still got that impact from the guy on the bench, but without the, not to be cruel, but the blank production. But he was, when with the ball in hand, the man could see a pass. I think we're going to miss him a little bit, without a doubt. I think his overall presence rather than his actual production was a huge part of the step we took last year.
I was shocked. I thought he had the last roster spot. I really did. So I got a bit of a shock when I saw the Woj bomb for that one. I do think it's potentially to the detriment of the team because of what he brings in the locker room. Like we did an overpay for him last season. In the playoffs, I think that exposed a little bit on the court, perhaps where shortcomings were. However, what he's done for the locker room, what he did for the edge of the team, what he did do in some games for the bench unit, you couldn't deny. I thought he would kind of got that big deal to get a small deal coming to stay. So I was a little bit shocked how, the Magic have matured. They've learned a lot last season. Maybe the front office are of the opinion that they're mature enough and that there are other leaders and strong voices in there. But I guess time will tell. So Goga Bitadze, we're going to come on to a little bit, but we've been linked with Isaiah Hartenstein. I thought, as I've said earlier in the pod, I thought this was a bit more likely as we got through Sunday evening and we got towards it opening up alongside KCP. Rumours were starting to swirl of a meeting between Hartenstein and OKC, and then the Magic, Hartenstein signs for $87 million 3 years with OKC. The Magic would then announce the return of Goga for 3 years at 25. So, I'm going to start here. What's your take on this? Is it big money for a third string, or does this tell us more about where Goga's role is?
Well, let me just pick up on the Hartenstein thing because I've been alluding to it all evening. It's a lot of money, isn't it? For someone who put up 8 points, 8 rebounds. I know he had a fantastic playoff with the Knicks. Does his job very well. Solid defensively. Is he worth 28 million a season for 3 years? I don't know. So you flip that around then to the Magic. Obviously, Wendell's on 11, Goga 8, and then you've got Mo at 11. So you've almost got the three centres just over in and around 30 million compared to that one player with 28. And you're going to get a lot more reliability out of a combination of those three. Mm-hmm. I'm happy Goga's back. We've seen, what he can do. He's still quite young. He's 24 at the moment. So
he looks a lot older.
He does. But he did look like he slimmed down a little bit. I don't know if you noticed in the, obviously Cole Anthony's been FaceTiming everyone who's managed to get the bag. And he did look a lot slimmer and obviously playing for Georgia as well. What he brings, he's solid. He came in, back in November, December when Wendell went down with that injury against the Jazz. We were winning games. It was just a shame, really, that he went back to the bench when Wendell came back. But at times during the season, we were, calling for Goga to come in, especially when, Wendell and Mo were struggling against those big Europeans, your Valanciunases, getting a little bit bullied perhaps. And Goga's kind of got a bit of a different game where, he can keep them away from the basket a little bit better. So, and we've talked about this before, it's kind of situational with the centres. You start Wendell, Mo's the scoring punch that comes on, and then you can stick Goga on to do the dirty work. So I'm happy that he's back. I don't think it's an overpay. It's, again, in and around the mid-level exception kind of money. We've got it to spend. And, again, it's an easily movable piece should it need to be included in anything in the future.
Yeah,
I think you've just mentioned something there, G, as well, about Cole, saying about him FaceTiming. For me, that's shown just what an important piece within the team he is for that glue, that chemistry. He's the guy who is ringing everybody up, talking, congratulating. He is a huge piece. And I genuinely hope that we don't see him in trades. I think it would be a huge loss for the chemistry of the locker room, and hopefully we start to see Cole get back to where he was prior to whatever issues he had last season. Still love the guy.
I thought you were going to say then you were hoping that Cole would be phoning Markelle tonight, but there we go.
Mate, when the question was being asked about who we've got one roster spot left, who you're picking, are you taking Markelle or are you taking Joe Ingles? I genuinely thought it would be Markelle. I still don't think it's beyond the realms of possibility. I wonder if there's something being worked on in the background, conversations with Markelle or conversations elsewhere. But it's surely got to be that position that we're looking at. now.
Yeah, the longer it goes on, the more nervous I get. But shall we get a resolution soon?
You never know, mate. He might end up wearing the purple and gold.
Oh, don't. It'd be sick. But
to join JJ. I mean, that would be an awful season for you. That would be an awful off-season for you. I've
already had to take a photo of JJ down.
It would be an awful off-season for you, mate.
I know.
But aren't they?
I know.
Theirs is such a hilarious summer. It's brilliant. Loving it.
Honestly, if that happens, I'm going to rent out a room in a church on like a Thursday morning at 11 o'clock for a coffee and cakes morning for people to come and sit with G and just like.
Coming back to Hartenstein, just feels like a big overpay for somebody. If you're having him as a centre, he's behind Holmgren.
Chat.
But the kind of indications are with that money that he's going to be perhaps starting at the 4. So you're asking somebody to play a different position.
I think Chet will play the 4. I think he's been brought in. Whether he starts, I think he'll finish. And my friend who's an OKC fan, he asked what I thought, and I said I think it's KCP and Hartenstein. But I was like, I think you guys are talking to Hartenstein. He's an overpay, but he's right for the Thunder. I think the Thunder.
He hits their needs 100%, man.
Yeah, they needed somebody tough, big, who would go in and do the dirty work and let the rest of them play. And I think they've got someone to do that, a body to stop Chet getting like manhandled by bigger guys, somebody who can put in and do that job. So I think they have overpaid, and I think his agent's done a hell of a job, because he'd be saying, "Oh, by the way, Orlando's waiting," or whoever else, because he will have had teams waiting, because it went from he's going to stay in New York and take a pay cut to all of a sudden we're getting linked and OKC's getting linked. So I think it sounded good until someone's waved the major money under his nose. And for OKC, the way their cap works and their draft picks, they could do it.
Yeah,
he was worth it. He was worth that price to them because of what I think he's going to give. Chet now can be the weak side defender in that. So I think he'll make Chet Holmgren even better, personally. So
I think they've had a good off-season, OKC. Genuinely. Them and the Pacers.
Yeah, I agree. Wes will be loving this, by the way, if he's listening.
Them and the Pacers. They've both had really good off-seasons.
Yeah. Paul, I'm gonna ask you this question, because I see you as the Gary Harris expert of the group.
I don't know what sort of comment that is on me, but thank you.
The Magic have brought him back 2 years, and we think it's about 15 million. I was shocked at this. To be fair, I thought he was gone. I was like convinced that we were going to see Gary Harris, Denver, or something like that. Paul, what's your take on this?
Right. First of all, I don't get the complete meltdown that people have had. I was shocked. I thought he was gone. Did not expect him to be back with the team for another season. I thought we'd seen the last of Gary in Magic uniform during the playoffs. Would I have been upset at that? No, not really. Let's be honest. As good a 3-and-D guy as he is, he didn't have a great season for us last year. However, we've brought him back on a very team-friendly deal, a very movable deal, and we've brought him back not as the starting two guard. I don't think you've necessarily even seen him as the leading guy to come off the bench for the shooting guard position. I think you're looking at him potentially being a third option. You've brought a guy in back to the team who is a veteran presence, who can offer you something, and equally in reducing those minutes, perhaps we see a greater availability from Gary. So ultimately, I don't think it's an awful deal. I was very surprised at it, and I do think that it's the sort of deal that we may well see moved as part of a trade at a later point. Now, I do understand that can't be until December due to the CBA agreements that there are in place. But I think that's going to be potentially a deal that we see able to be added into a trade if we are needing to do anything come the mid part of the season. It's a very, very movable contract. The guy is still one of those players that lots of teams will look at and think he can do a job for us. And I think that's what we've looked and thought. He can do a job for us. We know his game. He knows everybody else on this team. So let's bring him back. But as a third option, you could well see a different player as a result.
I think there's a lot to be said about him coming in as a mentor as well for Jet Howard. Obviously, Jet will be fighting for his minutes also. So having a veteran guy in the locker room, and obviously the front office is impressed with, his personality and perhaps the way he conducts himself with the younger players. I did have a quick look at got my little stato thing going again, just to prove how good a deal that KCP thing signing is. So Gary Harris's numbers from downtown, and obviously we thought he was pretty good, right? So last year 37%, year before 43, so that's an up year. 38, 36, 32, 34, 33. That's going back, 5-6 years now. So you've got KCP who's shooting, considerably better percentage.
Yep.
On probably a little bit more volume than Gary Harris there as well. So it just shows how good that KCP signing is.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
But to have Gary Harris as a foil to KCP, to have him, as you've said, as a mentor and also potential backup to be it Caleb Houston, be it Jet Howard, helping along, De Silva as well. It's a good piece of business. No need to melt down about it. I know that we all expected him to be gone, and probably it's not the sexiest of signings again, but it's a solid move. It's a solid piece of business.
So I think this is like a nice segue, because obviously we've seen a lot of chat, and there's people who are like, if you're watching, up at the roof saying, yep, great, this is what we want. We've seen praise for the Magic from some journalists, even though they do tend to want to talk about the Denver Nuggets and not us. That's a separate matter. But our off-season overall so far, so we've got the draft, we've got free agency, we've got what the Magic have done. I'm going to start with G. What grade would you give the Magic for this off-season?
Do you want to go first, Gary?
Can if you want.
Go on, mate. You go first.
I'd give us
steal your thunder.
I want to give us a B- for it, because I think we all had that where we know the Magic front office don't really leak things. So it's kind of there where whenever anything's on Twitter, you're like, wait till we say the Magic announced this. I looked at it and I was kind of like, when we got into the swing of things, I couldn't see Paul George. I really couldn't. I thought the only way we were going to get him was if he got to a point where he entered a room with Jamal Mosley. I was like, if he physically sits in the room with Jamal Mosley, maybe. But I wasn't thrilled at the idea of a 4-year deal for Paul George. 2 years, great. 4 years doesn't fit the Magic. There was a part of me that was kind of like, at the right price when it was coming out about Klay Thompson and what he might get paid. I was kind of like, if we can do this on 2 years with a team option for the third, which I didn't see as massively possible, I'd kind of warmed a bit to that.
Yeah.
But in my mind, I think we've done what we needed to do, and we've brought back and we've given ourselves options. I'm quite happy with the Pope signing. As you've said, G, it's not a sexy signing. Those other two would be. I'm quite happy with it, but there is a little bit of me, because of where we were pumped up to be and on the back of the playoffs and such, and a pretty good draft. I was kind of like, which is part of the B-. I was kind of like, could you just imagine, like, the media spotlight if the Magic had say nabbed Klay Thompson on that deal? So I think there's a little bit of me which is, I don't want to say overwhelmed or deflated, but it was just a little bit back to earth, a little bit.
Yeah.
And we look at it, and Philly have got better. New York have got better. Milwaukee right now, even though I think this could change, are in there, and Boston are in there. So Orlando's in that second rung. which is where we were last season. We're in that second rung. The East, there's some teams that are out of it now. So we're in that second rung with, I think, Cleveland are in there with us, for example. There's one team, Miami, if they're fit, will be in there. But we're in that, Indiana, of course, are in there, but we're in that second rung of the Eastern Conference. So I think we're probably around about where we were, but we have got the potential for our star players to get better. So if Franz Wagner goes back to 35-36% from three, if KCP opens that up for him and he can do that a little bit more, Franz is probably then on 22 a game. And I think it's very, very realistic that Paolo's going to do 25 plus. So if your top two guys, if we are on this Boston build, if our top two guys are putting up 47, 48 between them relatively efficiently, you've got a chance. So that's where I'm at there. So I'm trying to just tell myself longer term.
Well, especially with a great defensive team as well.
Yeah.
Holds opponents, so one of the, in the top 3, top 5, whatever it is.
I think we've given ourselves let's see how the season starts. But I said this off air. Let's just hypothetically say Phoenix, say Durant does what he did in Brooklyn and gets himself out, which I could see happening. I do think we've got the assets to get Devin Booker.
Yeah.
That's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah. No, that's good observation, mate. For me, I'd probably go with a B. As we've said, all the players, we've got an upgrade in KCP. We've drafted a very, very good rookie who hopefully should be able to come in and do a job. A lot of the disappointment on, social media will be, we're running it back again. But we have got that upgrade. We're expecting more of a development from Franz and Paolo. Obviously, we need to finish the roster out. But we've kept the flexibility, and I think that's key. Flexibility, and we've got the draft picks. We've got 2 draft picks next year. We've got 1 year after. We've got 2 the following year in the first round. You keep that flexibility. And as you mentioned, a disgruntled star will come available at some point. And you put yourself in that position. We're lurking, like you say, in that second tier in the Eastern Conference. And someone's going to go, I could help them out. And you never know. So I'd probably stick it with a B, with the potential to go B plus if they do the right thing with the last roster spot. But I'll leave that to your imagination what they should do.
Me, mate, I'm strong B, very much trending towards a B plus. I still think we've got a deep roster. I think we've got a really deep roster. I think they've only improved it by bringing in KCP. I think De Silva is a quality draft. Are you going to be surprised if we're outside the top 3 defensively? It'd be a shock, I think. So, so what we've done is build on our identity and build on what this team does well, whilst addressing hopefully some of the needs. The contracts that we've brought in or renegotiated, we don't have a single bad contract on this team. And in fact, we have a lot of very, very movable contracts. Huge thing. You've said it, G, about the picks. We own all our future picks. We own a couple of others. We've got various, I think, a couple of pick swaps available as well, something like that.
Yeah, and multiple second rounders.
Yeah. Paolo, you've got an absolute superstar in the making. You've got Franz, you've got Jalen. Both guys are capable of getting into an all-star team, I think, ultimately. So many good things happening with this squad, and we have a lot of potential. So yeah, you can't. I just don't think you can be mad at what we've done. I think it's a really good off-season. See what we do with the 2 ways now. I mean, is it Trevelyan's back, Queen's back?
Traveling Queen signed today, in the 2-way. You'd hope Mac McClung maybe get the second one, but we shall see.
And then we've got a third, haven't we? You've got 3 again this season. So there's still potential guys to come in and provide that assistance there as well. I think it's been a good off-season. I'm quite happy. I would rather have a steady, carefully thought out build rather than that single flashy move that harms the team, because we've seen so many flashy moves harm teams. I'd rather the patient build. I like it.
Yeah, I'm gonna kind of end on this a bit, Paul, what you've just said there, because I know within our Patreon and our Discord group, and I'll shout the members out in a moment for their support. Podfather Phil loves Hazy Northwestern made it. I think it was a valid point. I do think it's got a valid point of the only way we're going to get an elite star now is to make that trade, and we've all kind of touched on that there. And he said, well, right now Zach LaVine's available, if you were exemplifying it. I think we've got probably our own views on LaVine's contract. But where would we stand on the Magic trading for a star? Because we've probably stockpiled the contracts, we can agree. And it's something we might consider. So, like, where do we stand and who might it be? I've given the Devin Booker example, but I do think, Paul, what you ended with there, just to finish the pod off this week, we do not want to be, in my opinion, the Brooklyn Nets. We do not want to be the Phoenix Suns, because I think they are 2 teams who have gone down there. Let's throw a big 3 together, and it's been disastrous. We were the first team to play Brooklyn's big 3, if you remember, when they got and it never happened. It didn't occur. I know that some teams seem to be moving away from that model now. So it's just an open question to end it. I think if we are going to do it, the player might be Devin Booker. I do think it's something we might consider based on how we're doing. Just wondering, based on what Phil said, where you guys are on that. Who would it be, if so?
I have 0 idea who it would be. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah.
I'm terrible at these things. However, I'd want somebody of good character. I want a character guy. I don't want the prima donna. Boston, I think, have done this the right way. They got their 2 stars out of the draft. They got them as a result of Brooklyn's flashy move that didn't work. The one flashy move that Boston made with that squad was bringing in Kyrie Irving, and it didn't work. Move him on. There's not really made any. I don't think there's any other great flashy moves that they've made in respect of who they've brought in. They've brought in guys that suit the needs of the team. Perhaps you could argue that bringing in KP is a flashy move, but other than that, has they really made any big splashes in the market? They've picked people up that work for their need, and I would still rather go with that.
They've kind of bought low, particularly on Drew Holiday and Derek White, haven't they? They've got Derek White. They've kind of unlocked the potential, and ultimately, we would love to have Derek White. That's kind of what we would need right now, that player. And then Drew Holiday, they got him where he kind of just been discarded to bring in Lillard, which really hasn't worked for Milwaukee. On paper, it looked great, 3-point gunner alongside Giannis, and even that hasn't worked.
I would rather us do something methodical rather than the flashy move. I'm not a fan of the flashy move.
Yeah, absolutely. G, are you a fan of the flashy move? Or was it flashy moves?
No, I agree, totally agree. You look at some of the dynasties in the last 20 years. Golden State did it the right way. They drafted Clay, they drafted Steph, Draymond. You look at the San Antonio Spurs in the late 90s, early noughties, Ginobili, Tim Duncan. They had great success. So the draft is the best way to do it. Just thinking out loud of players, Zach LaVine was mentioned there. You wouldn't touch him with a barge pole because of that contract. There's talks of Chicago offering a pick to go with it, just to get off that contract. But that is their big reset button. The only 2 I can think to come to mind, obviously you mentioned Booker. possibly De'Aaron Fox in Sacramento. Is he that character guy, though? I'm not sure. Obviously, point guard, it would sort the point guard situation out. And the other one that's been bandied around in recent weeks, Anthony Simons, Orlando native from Portland, who I think is a lot more gettable than De'Aaron Fox. But, if that would have happened, I think it would have happened by now, and we wouldn't have seen all the signings that we've seen. So, no, develop it the way we're doing it is the right way to do it. But, if somebody really, really, really good does come available, you've got to look at it.
Absolutely.
Because you've only got a small window with these players. And, unfortunately, some of them won't go on to pastures new. So when you've got that chance, you need to take that chance and put yourself in a position to try and win that championship.
I've got to be honest, G, when you were talking there about Golden State, I absolutely winced because what's happening now, and when you look at, they've got Kuminga, but how it's developed, where they could have had, I think, LaMelo Ball they could have had Şengün in there. I think that would have been a pretty big way to start rebuilding if they had LaMelo Ball, Şengün, and Kuminga alongside Steph.
I think their front office probably changed from the time they drafted all those, stars to the recent ones.
Change again, maybe. Any more, guys?
I just want to ask one question. We've been talking about our own off-season, and we've already mentioned that we think the Pacers have had a great off-season, that OKC have been nailing it. Who for you has really fell short, not had a good one so far?
Ooh, that's a toughie. Chicago.
Yep. I'm going to throw the Lakers in there again. They've just, for what they were supposed to be aiming for, and who LeBron was supposed to have said that I'm willing to take a pay cut for, they've just landed nobody. They are in some dire straits when you look at how far over they are in the cap, how little of their own future drafts picks they own. It's a difficult situation for the Lakers camp, I'm guessing, at this moment in time, looking at it. Becky, this one. What about you, Gary?
Golden State.
Yeah.
I think it's looking as though it's reaching the end. I think the loss of Klay Thompson is probably morale-wise, if you're Steph Curry. I think that's going to hurt you. And yeah, they've tried to make a few moves to bring it back, but I'm not so sure that's going to do it.
Because Buddy Hield went there today.
He did.
I'm going to say, with landing Buddy Hield, does that change the... It's not an awful deal, is it? 21 million?
But they've got to, at some point, I think, gamble on this and go, right, what have we got in Kuminga? And even give Moses Moody a shot. That's because I think they're at that point now where if Draymond looked as though he was ready to blow at times last season, they've lost Klay. Even Steph isn't quite at the level he was before. So I think they're kind of edging nearer and nearer to the end now. And, we've seen a good dynasty there, but it looks as though it's, when Klay went, I was like, this is going to be hard for you guys now. So probably Golden State, but I think it's natural wastage, as they would say in the business world.
Miami?
Yeah, that's a good shot, actually. They didn't get a free agent until, was it yesterday?
I must have missed who they picked up yesterday.
Alec Burks.
Oh, right, okay. Yeah, that's not an awful signing for them. He does fit their style of play very much.
Yeah, and I think they brought Kevin Love back as well.
Yeah, on about with DeRozan, aren't they, now, for him?
Yeah. You could see that being pulled out of the bag, though, couldn't you?
Yeah, you could.
Although he's being linked with the Spurs and Kings now, apparently. So we'll see. But I don't think they've lit anything up this off season.
Brooklyn's done.
Yeah, just interested, guys.
Yeah.
I think you look at the bottom of the East, and Brooklyn, Chicago, and Washington look as though they've got them 3 slots sewn up already. I'd be honest with you. I think there's question marks around some of, and I'm not hating on Scotty Barnes here. I think there's question marks on the Raptors, on the money they've spent. And I think Scotty Barnes is an all-star. Like, I do think he's that level of talent, but I think what they've got around him is going to need some work.
Yeah.
You know. There we go. It's a good question.
You need your favourite to make a rise this season.
He'll rise to the occasion.
Oh, Grady.
Yeah, you love it, G. You love it. Right, on that bombshell, I think we'll say. I'll go with that. It's safe. That's going to do it for this week. Thanks for listening, watching. Before we go, we want to say a big thank you to our patrons who help us with the show. So thanks for your incredible support. Barry Conn, Paolo and Franz Warmth, Ollie Law, Gary Clark, Angus Craig, Dylan Holden, Alan Kane, Tom Sohn, Mark Joss, Sean Moore, Liam Radbourne, Andy Lindley, Stuart Benzies, Drummy Drum, Podfather Phil loves Hazy Northwestern, and welcome to our newest member, Michael Martin, who joined us. So thank you very much for joining the club, Michael. It's massively appreciated and welcome on board.
Cheers, bud.
I think G might have sent you a message about linking up in the Discord group, so hopefully
I have, yeah.
If you're interested in joining our Patreon, we have 3 tiers available. We've got varying benefits. Please visit patreon.com/letstalkmagic if you wish to join the guys today. So I think that's going to do it this week. So the third lion for Mikey, for G, for Paul, and for myself, as always, go Magic.